All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will call this meeting to order, but before I take a motion for the adoption of the agenda, we do have a very special guest with us here this evening. She is, I think, probably one of our strongest entrepreneurs in Edson, if not the region. She was very successful during Lemonade Day, winning the Triple Crown this past summer. And then to top that off, you didn't think she could do any better than that. She decided to go into what I would call an international competition with 23,000 other youth and became the second runner-up of all those people. So if you want to stand, we have Miss Kaylee Lease with us. Stand up. I'd like to give you a big round of applause. Kaylee's Little Lemons and just superb lemonade. Who all had Kaylee's Lemonade during Lemonade Day? It's absolutely fantastic. So congratulations, Kaylee. And we're going to do a photo and a little bit of a presentation for you here today. And did you come on up?
There went the presentation. We just get a bill from there, right?
So we have a certificate here for you, Kaylee. There you go.
Gotta look over here and smile.
Okay.
Put the
bag
The other way?
No, hold still. Christine's trying to get a picture.
Oh. I see. And we have some memorabilia in there for you as well. So congratulations. Job well done. There you go. Thank you. And you're free to stay if you like, or feel free to head on. You certainly will not take any offense to that.
Run.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I can get a motion, please, for the adoption of the December 6, 2022 agenda, please. Councilor Chenard, make the motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the November 15th, 2022 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councilor Moore will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. We have no public hearings, but we do have a delegation this evening joining us from the Alberta Forest Products Association as well as from Weyerhaeuser. Please welcome Mr. Brock Mulligan, Senior Vice President of the Alberta Forest Products Association, and Natalie Peace, the General Manager of Weyerhaeuser Edson. I don't know if Natalie's on the line. There we go. Perfect. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Zahara and Council. How are you?
Excellent. How are you doing, Brock?
Good, thanks. Thanks so much for having us here. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and chat about a couple of things that are going on in our industry, and also to thank you for being such strong champions. I know that that Mayor and Council and Edson have done a number of things for us, and there's one thing I wanted to report on that we got a good result on. So I just wanted to say thanks, because it means a lot to us as an industry. And so with that, I just wanted to let you know about a couple of key items that we're working on. One, that as I mentioned, we got a really good result, was that there was a proposal from the Alberta Electric System Operator, basically to put a bunch of more transmission cost onto industrial users. And it would have caused serious repercussions for users kind of all across West Central and Northern Alberta. A number of communities wrote letters and did interventions before the Utilities Commission when that proposal was up for debate. Your council graciously sent in a letter as well. And the good news is that our voices were heard on that one. The Alberta Utilities Commission rejected the proposal by ISO and basically sent them back to the drawing board. And just to give a little bit of color on like the depth of the problem that we're seeing here. One thing that was highlighted in the decision was that since 2007, Alberta's electricity grid transmits about 7% more electricity than it did in 2007. So it does 7% more work, but the cost to run that system is 327% higher. And then that's basically due to some frankly poor decisions around transmission and a serious overbuild. And the proposal kind of sought to bury those mistakes in rural communities and to put a higher share of the cost on industrial users, which we thought was unfair. We're able to successfully argue to the commission that it was then and would be harmful. And so, yeah, that's basically the gist of the decision we got, but we wouldn't have gotten that decision without communities like Edson weighing in and talking about the potential for harm. So I just wanted to say how much we appreciate that, Mayor Zahara. I know you were really active on the file and council as well.
All right, thank you very much for that, Brock. And I'm very happy to hear that we had some success on that.
Cool. And so there's a second file, and I know that this is something that definitely hits home in Edson, and I'll turn it over to Natalie to give a little bit of color about some of the challenges that we see in a second. But what AFPA and a number of our municipal partners are working on is a coalition of municipalities to advocate on rail service. And we hear all across our industry that rail service is a major challenge. Yeah, and we're looking to kind of amplify it so it's not just industry's voice anymore, but some of our communities too, because we know that it affects multiple industries, affects multiple communities in Western and Northwestern Alberta. And so we would be, very appreciative of some support on it. And so before I go into kind of the specifics of what we're working on, I just wanted to turn it over to Natalie to talk a little bit about how important rail is for her facility.
Thank you, Brock, and thank you everyone for having us tonight. Just a shout out to regarding the electrical rates that Brock had mentioned. That's a big issue for our industry, and thank you for all your support. When it comes to rail, when we're making OSB at the warehouse or facility, our raw materials, whether it's rocks or resin, will arrive by rail. Our resin it's directly into the facility. Our waxes will go into Leduc, and then they're offloaded at a transload and trucked down to our facility. And majority of our finished product, 70 to 80%, ships out of our facility by rail. So if there's any hiccups in the service, we are in a shutdown mode very quickly. We need one rail car, or say 3 rail cars every couple of weeks for MDI to keep our facility running, as well as we need to ship out 6 box cars of finished product 6 days a week. And if we're not doing that, we start building inventory, which is extremely costly. And then because we are a small player in the OSB market, we do make the best OSB out there because it's made in Edson. But our warehouse fills up extremely quickly. And once our warehouse is full, we are trying to find outdoor facilities that are covered, or we have to bag our product to keep our customers in the product that they need and our employees working. So it becomes high stress. Winter and spring seem to be some of the roughest conditions for us. So we appreciate any support you can do to help build a more reliable rail system here in Alberta and across the country. Brock, I'll hand that back to you.
Thanks, Natalie. So what AFPA and our municipal partners are working on is a strategy and effectively a coalition to go and lobby the provincial government, the federal government, and the railways themselves. And so we've retained a lobbying firm that's going to have some connections kind of beyond. We have pretty good connections, of course, here in Alberta, but to really let us get into that federal and national space where the industry is regulated and where things occur. And so what we have is a proposal from Canadian Strategy Group to go and do that work. As an industry association, we've committed $15,000 out of the $35,000 budget. We would be very appreciative of support from municipal partners. And just to let you know kind of who's signed on to the initiative so far, there are 8 communities that we have confirmation from and a couple more that I'm waiting on. So far in our Grand Prairie, Whitecourt, High Level, Slave Lake, Peace River, Mackenzie County, Northern Sunrise County, and Northern Lights County. And so we're hopeful for a little bit of financial support. We expect it to be around $2,000 from each of the participating partners. And if that's not feasible, the thing that's really important is your voice in the whole conversation, because this is something that impacts communities and having that articulated from communities themselves is extremely valuable. And I think it's safe to say too that we're anticipating a tough winter. We're hearing about a big grain crop. Well, we know there's a big grain crop, and there's going to be high demand for a lot of commodities. So it would be really good for railways to be right at the top of their game, because they've got a lot of product to move. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I'm hoping folks have the proposal in front of them, and we're appreciative of your consideration and happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much, Brock and Natalie, for taking the time this evening. And I also want to extend our gratitude to Weyerhaeuser for all their support in our community over the last year. Very visible, and of course, of all the jobs and economic activity that they contribute to the town of Edson. So we'll open the floor to questions. This is an item on our agenda later on this evening. So, Council, do you have any questions for either Brock or Natalie? Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
Through the chair to either Brock or Natalie. How long has this problem been around, and what do you think are some solutions to it?
Would you like to start, Natalie, or would you like me to?
Well, for me, in my time in Edson, I've been here since 2018. Rail has been an issue my whole time here in Edson. It's mainly in the winter, but it can come in the summer, it can come in the fall, and it is a big stressful point. And thankfully, Mayor Kevin and Council have been to our defense a few times. Mayor Kevin posted a YouTube video for me one year when the rail was about ready to go on strike. And as for solutions, I think we really need to lobby and work with the rail services, make sure they understand our needs, and then how do we prioritize the forestry sector when they're planning, and reach out to them for some solutions as well. Brock, yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, like it's a problem every winter, and I think one of our asks of railways is going to be that they need to figure out how to deal with this, because it's not like winter is a surprise phenomenon that happens once in a decade. It's something that's consistent, and the service is consistently poor through those months. And so this is a big part of the ask of them to make the proper investments in people and infrastructure to make sure that the service is delivered during the months when we really need it the most.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Council. Any other questions? Councillor Barr.
Thanks. Through the chair to our delegations here. My apologies if I missed this already. My question is regarding what would be your ultimate goal if lobbying happened? What would your expectation be on the railways? Are you looking? I'm not sure I understand what that end game is. Is that you're looking for more rail lines, more rail cars to be prioritized? It says here that you're trying to lobby with other industries, but are you lobbying with the industries, or are you competing against them for space? I'm just not sure I understand that whole dynamic.
Sure, and that's a fair question. I think that we're lobbying with other industries, and we've reached out to other industries, including a couple of the agricultural commissions, to try to form a partnership. I mean, unfortunately, the dynamics of the situation right now put us in competition, but that's not what we want. Like we want a rail system that's built to serve all customers. And that's going to require some investment in both human resources and infrastructure, because they're often in short supply. And so that's really the ask, is to build more kind of resiliency into that system so that it can handle, the types of demand spikes that we see.
Natalie, maybe you can explain kind of how it works to obtain rail cars, to give some background on the process that you have to go through if you need to get rail cars for your facility.
Well, we have a continuous service with CN, so we're supposed to get six cars every 6 days. We have a really good working relationship with CN and the local train master, and they really try to rally and service our site on a reliable basis. But when the whole network across the country starts to get backlogged, it puts a lot of pressure on those local facilities to meet the needs of all the, whether it's the mills or the farmers or whatever it is. And we really just need more resources and a better reliable system to service all of our needs. So if we're short cars, then we try to reach out to the local train master to see if we can get our switch. We will open bid on cars. So that's what we were doing earlier this summer, is we just do an open bid system. And then the highest bidder on the cars gets them to their facility, just to try to keep our inventory down.
All right, thanks, Natalie. Any other questions? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the mayor to our delegation, thank you for your work on this and going around to communities and getting that support. You mentioned 8 communities that signed on in favor. Any communities sort of not or hesitant or haven't got back to you anyway?
There are a handful of communities that we don't have confirmation from, but I know that like the request was also circulated to the Northern Alberta elected leaders. So I think that it's gone out to a good chunk of communities, and there are a couple of others that we're kind of expecting a reply from in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Chouinard.
Through to the delegation, thank you for your work as well. If you don't use rail, then I guess the alternative is trucking, but then that becomes a problem and cost wise, because I'm almost thinking if you can't get it right in Edson, what would be your closest place that you could possibly load cars?
If we can't get it right in Edson, we can sometimes use a CN reload in town. Other than that, everything goes by truck to the customer. We can truck it into Vancouver, but it's pretty much all converted to truck, which becomes a very costly expense for us, as well as there is a national-wide driver shortage as well. So it's really hard securing trucks to move that additional product.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Barr.
Thanks. So through the chair to delegations, regarding lobbying the federal government, have you had any successes with them so far? Or have they been able to persuade the rail industry to kind of, I guess, better suit everybody's needs and provide services?
So our conversations as AFPA with the federal government are kind of in their early stages, and we're planning as part of this lobbying effort to have more in-depth conversations. One of the things that's out there is that there was a national task force on, I'm going to get the name wrong, but I think it was basically supply chains, and they made a number of recommendations in regard to improving how the system works, including some that are fairly technical. But we saw them and have consulted with a number of folks around our industry, and they think that there's real potential in these. And so one of our asks of the federal government is going to be to give those very serious consideration, because it's their task force. And so the recommendations are there, and now it's time to put some resources and some action in place to make them stick.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much, Brock and Natalie, for taking the time this evening. And so our next item on our agenda is to talk about this and decide if we want to support this initiative. So once again, thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much for everything you do to be such strong champions for our industry. It's incredible, and you know, that support means a lot to people all over our industry.
Well said, Brock. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we have no reading of bylaws, reports from administration, Railway Advocacy Coalition appointment, and financial support. Can I get a motion, please, that council contribute $2,000 to the Alberta Railway Advocacy Coalition? That is moved by Councillor Basichny, and I think her previous presentation has pretty much highlighted why this request is coming forward, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I have been participating informally in some meetings with Northern mayors and reeves, so I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Councillor Barr.
Thanks. Through the chair to the mayor. I was wondering that because this is something that doesn't just affect the town of Edson, it appears by the presentation and from what I've read that it affects many municipalities across Alberta. for various obvious reasons. And when I went onto the Alberta Municipalities website under their advocacy, I couldn't find anything to suggest that in the past 10 years, there's been any kind of advocacy for Alberta Railways or getting helping our local industries, whichever one they may be, whether it's forestry or mining or agricultural or energy. So if this is something that we're going to proceed with at this level tonight, I would also maybe perhaps want to make a recommendation that we forward this to Alberta municipalities for a resolution to support all of our local municipalities. Maybe this is something that they could advocate for us as well.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I'd certainly entertain a motion to that effect. Following on the following motions. You're absolutely correct. As was highlighted, it affects all municipalities, all industries, whether you're in construction, cement, forestry, agriculture. The service is not there at certain times of the year. For rural communities in particular, it can have devastating impacts. We lose a shift at our mill, that's a lot of dollars for our communities. So I think that's a great idea. Anybody else? Councillor Schnarr.
I'm also in favor of this $2,000. Since it's federally funded CN, have we brought this attention of our local MP? Because we're going to, like, I'm imagining involved in not only our MP, other MPs around.
That's part of this whole strategy.
Okay, so we will involve them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor, to council, I'm supportive of the motion and the subsequent two motions after that. Anytime we can put our voice out there in terms of something like this and see the rewards back to Edson to help certainly local industry that has been so good to our community. I think we should do that for what is a very nominal cost to us. So to get a voice out there, I'm also supportive of if Councillor Byer puts forward a motion to a resolution because I think if it comes from a much bigger voice, we might see much bigger results. So. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? You know, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion that council appoints Mayor Kevin Zahara to the Alberta Railway Advocacy Coalition? Councillor Taylor, make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. And can I get a motion that council approve Mayor Kevin Zahara participation along with associated expenses in the Alberta Railway Advocacy Coalition delegation to meet with government officials in Ottawa to further the coalition's advocacy efforts if required? Councillor Schnarr, make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor. Was it?
Turn that if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe through the mayor to council. I do note in our briefings on here that it's approximately about $1,300 for travel. We're not, that's just an estimate. We're not tied to that number. Is that correct? Because traveling to Ottawa would cost more than that.
I don't think we're tied to that. This is just to give you kind of an idea of the types of costs we're looking at, but
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure because I mean, hotels in Ottawa are crazy expensive, not to mention the travel and all the associated expenses. We'll make sure we don't leave ourselves short.
yeah.
So.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Through to our acting CFO. Ms. Beveridge, this would come out of our existing budget. I think we have enough room in there. We never utilize our budget for travel and expense.
That is correct.
All right. So there'll be really no additional cost. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried, and Councillor Byer, would you put forward a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that council direct administration to bring back a motion for Alberta municipalities in supporting the Alberta Railway Advocacy Coalition. And if you would like to better word that, I would appreciate it.
Just like Daniel,
Go ahead, see whoever.
Mr. Rebel will let our legislative officer pull that up on screen and he'll.
That's a wordsmith. May I have a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Through the mayor, Councilor, are you looking to get a resolution to go to the resolution? Because we only just another community to sponsor that. So
Well, we definitely have another community sponsor that, so.
I say we have 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think Hinton would be totally on board with that.
yeah, just because it's more than just us passing motion, so.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I can certainly reach out to our neighbors to see if they would be willing to do that. Is that the motion you want, Councilor Barr?
I think so. I'd be open to some friendly amendments if any wordsmithing.
I would suggest that that council direct administration bring back a
Draft.
draft resolution for Alberta municipalities.
Perfect. That's what I meant to say.
Just like you
More
said,
information regarding how to, like.
Yeah.
Or if that's required, put forward a resolution for the next conference.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Are you good with that, CO Beverage?
Mr. Mayor, may I adjusted a touch?
Sure.
The council direct administration to bring back a draft resolution for Alberta municipalities to be considered. Supporting the Railway Advocacy Coalition to be considered convention 2023.
resolution.
I think he's a fast typer.
He is.
It's amazing.
You realize you could type that with one finger.
Of course.
That's what I have.
Oh, beautiful.
He had that, he just was waiting and testing it.
Are you good with that, Councilor Barr?
I am, yes.
All right. Everybody's clear on the motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. I love motions on the fly. All right.
Before we move on there, Mr. Mayor, it's one of those things too, we have the opportunity at FCM. If you're attending, to attend the CN luncheon, because you have the opportunity to have the vice president there and bring forward these kind of information, and they have to answer to you in the room full of people, so it's a
That's a great idea.
the CN luncheon is really important to go to, especially as a rail town like Edson when you're at FCM.
You always tell me to be quiet.
Well, you be quiet, but it's okay.
I will just quickly mention before we move on, there have been communities trying to get this on the FCM agenda, and there has been unfortunately some pushback on that. And one can assume it's because of the major sponsorship by the rail lines. So that is why we are going in this direction, because the FCMO was not very receptive to Alberta's concerns. So I'll just leave it at that. I will move on to our next item. That council cancel the December 13th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting and schedule a regular council meeting on December 13th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Edson Civic Center. Councilor Sherrard will make that motion.
Sure.
All right, and Mr. Daniel Lucas, if you want to come up, our legislative officer, to
Explain this to me.
explain this to Councilor Sherrard.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I've not too much to add. Really, this is essentially a housekeeping or administrative matter, just to ensure that next week we have a council meeting, so that in the event the need arises, which administration doesn't anticipate at this time, the council will be able to pass some resolutions, which would be prevented from doing if it was the whole meeting.
You have any further things you want to add, CO Beverage, or are you good?
Not this one.
Okay, Councilor Sherrard.
You're gonna send us a calendar memo, so remember to wear a suit.
I will update. the
Thanks,
calendar
then.
invitation.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the
All right. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Can I get a motion that council approve the write-off of the 2022 uncollectible accounts in the amount of $3,594.37 as listed in attachment 1? Councilor Taylor will make that motion, and this is Mr. Alvin Kuzak. You wanna come on up? For those that aren't aware, Alvin is our brand new finance manager. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I'll be speaking on behalf of the request for decision 2022 uncollectible accounts. The motion is that council approve the write-off of the 2022 uncollectible accounts in the amount of $3,594.37 as listed in attachment 1. So the finance department reviews outstanding accounts on a regular basis and identifies accounts that are remain uncollectible for an extended period of time. Each year around this time, administration moves forward the uncollectible accounts for write-off. And that's our best practice, and the accounting practice is to write these off at the end of the year so that we can be as we can't get collected. Accounts reach this status for different reasons. I think in the past they're declaring bankruptcy. Accounts sent to debt collection agency for deemed uncollectible up to 2 years. International debtors cannot be forwarded to debt collection agencies. Accounts outside of the Alberta Limitations Act, according to the Act. Any proceedings or claims in respect to debt collection must be started within 2 years of the debt account occurring. And so that kind of leads us to this position where we need to fight them off. And that's why I'm here to ask you to approve that today.
Thank you all. Council, any questions, comments, or concerns? See none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion that council approve the 2023 operating budget as presented in attachment 1? Councilor Pacificny will make that motion, and we have Sheila Beveridge here to present on our operating budgets. And I think this is round number 5 or 6. So it should be fairly known to council.
Oh, that's the money.
She just did, we wrote off 3,500.
Comes out of your wages.
Okay. I'm not going to Ottawa, so we saved it.
I'm not going to Ottawa either.
This is what my Trevor.
Welcome, Sheila Beveridge.
Thank you. I feel so short sitting here on this tiny chair. Okay, so.
You put that there on purpose.
Very small.
Very small. Yes, okay, so tonight, I'm here to present the budget to council. Council has seen this budget several times since October. As you know, the town of Edson has been recovering back to pre-COVID service levels. And also in that, we're looking at the challenges that we're facing in the future. Some of those challenges are inflationary, supply chain issues, as well as future and possible future economic recession. Despite these challenges, we are committed to maintaining the service levels, ensuring fiscal sustainability, and achieving our strategic goals and initiatives set forward by this council. As residents identified through their budget consultation, there was a desire to increase service levels for roads while maintaining service levels in most other departments. We're presenting tonight a $30.5 million operating budget, and it's proposed that it continues to move our community forward to deal with the infrastructure deficits, as well as responding to the budget consultation requests and improving recreational opportunities. The budget was designed to address every pillar of the strategic plan. With that, I'll start the presentation. So through this presentation, I'm probably going to go fairly quickly through this as council has seen all this information, but I'd be happy to have any questions along the way. So we'll go over the COVID recovery strategy, municipal price index, what makes up the base budget, service changes and additional budget requests, taxation and increase summary, and finally the taxation impact by assessment value. So the COVID recovery strategy, that makes up a large portion of the budget for this year, 2.46%. And this was to recover from providing the reduction in 2020 of a 5% tax decrease. Any questions? The Edson municipal price index, I went over this, has been went over several times, but I'd be happy to go over it if you wish. Essentially, it's the MPI that we have created for Edson in comparison with our local situation. So at this point, our MPI is at 5.7%. Base budget, we've spoken a lot about the base budget through this process. This presents a 4.52 taxation increase, and this equates to $542,400. And this reflects the requirements that would keep us at the same service level of last year, including also mentioning that the COVID relief, the subsidization of the 2.46%. The obligations, as noted, I won't go through those in depth. We've noted those, but essentially it's electricity, the policing. These are things that we cannot. We have no option to not continue paying or to change our way we do business in that fashion. One of the things I did want to mention about the base budget as well, the West Yellowhead Community Futures, they brought forward a presentation. We were well with as we started our budget process, and I just wanted to note we absorbed that within. There was a $10,000 request within the economic development budget because essentially that is an economic development function, and felt that there was no need to increase any taxes on that, and so we absorbed that into their portion that was already within. So just wanted to make a note of that. Also in 2022, I wanted to note that we utilized $500,000 from our revenue sharing agreement from Yellowhead County, but in 2020 for the 2023 budget, we have increased that by another $500,000 in order to provide this budget forward for us today. Any questions on it? This next slide is all of the service changes and additional budget requests. You'll note that we have included everything that was also provided by council, as well as what administration had as well put forward. So this gives a total of 3.73%. That includes all of the requests. I'll stop here if anyone has any questions.
Questions?
So that leads us to the budget increase summary. So again, our base budget is 4.52%. The service changes and additional budget requests of 3.73 for a total as presented at the total that was presented to you originally was 7.71%. But with all of those changes, it led us to the 8.25% at that time. And that was, we went through those items on November 15th as well. And this slide articulates, I'm not going to go through this entire piece, but essentially the average residential assessment of $313,204 leads to an increase of $163.06, leading to a monthly increase of $13.59 a month, just to give council perspective on what it does for our average tax. Another item, just noting the 8.25% equates to about 990,000. So from last year, this is the additional of what would be recovered. And that concludes my presentation. The request here is to approve the 2023 operating budget as presented in attachment 1. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, CEO Beveridge. Council, any questions? Comments? Concerns? Councilor Kemp.
Through the mayor to council and administration, this might be a little long-winded. Really sorry if being dramatic. This has been an interesting 2 months because it's been strangely silent when we talk about this, and I don't know, if our administration has always been wondering why council's been relatively silent when talking about this. For me, it's because I look at this budget and I see this is a bang for your buck budget. Really is. Everything in here was very deliberately and judiciously chosen, as CEO Beveridge said, to tie into a strategic plan. Everything was. So when it came time to discuss it, for me, I had no issues with what was in it. So I look back to what we did on October 15th and the subsequent meetings after that, and we talked about the budget, but there wasn't much said. And that's just speaking on behalf of me and the things that were put in here. And I bring up some of the things that we talked about is that, as CEO Beveridge said, we listened to the individuals that filled in the survey. Everybody in the survey said they wanted the same level of service. So in doing that, you automatically will see a slight increase to accommodate that. And there were two areas I think that wanted increases, and it was road, sidewalk, snow, to which we took seriously. And you see within the budget the things that we've added within there to address that, right? The second one was RCMP services, but through our staff sergeant, it was said that the services that we currently provide were adequate. So we addressed those things, and other things in our strategic plan that we looked at. One of the things that I really like to see was the $30,000 for connected community initiatives, right? And within that, Indigenous initiatives. As much as I like to say I'd like to speed up our work on that, I also recognize that not everybody has perhaps been doing it as long as others. So I accept that we go at the pace we need to go at. But that funding is a great start. Improving facilities. Sometimes I think the multiplex takes precedence, and I may be dipping into some capital costs or capital talk when I talk about this, but many of the things that we put in to improve our facilities, whether it be library or the Glenwood Park, Envision Park, Griffiths Park, and I know some of those are into capital, but we've taken great initiative at looking after our facilities. We want to increase efficiencies. We had a great discussion on whether or not we should bring on two new staff. And the discussion was we want to make this organization more efficient, and we can do that if we bring on that staff. So although this is my second budget, this kind of feels like my first one because because this one aligns to the strategic plan that this council wanted. The last one didn't. That was on a plan that I wasn't a part of. So so I sort of I look at council and I say I'm supportive of the two motions that we presented, the one here and the next one. And I look at our administration, and with the exception of Ms. Bitter, who I know is not here, and to her I say job well done. This was a monumental task. But to the rest of our administration, I say, I don't know how you'll take this, but the easy part's over. The hard part is now doing all the stuff that's in here, right? You know, you want to look back a year and say, look at all the stuff we got done. And then it's truly a bang for your buck budget. So that is my long-winded comments.
So are you in support or not in support?
Like 3 sentences ago. Because I can't teach you that.
Sorry, I kind of fell asleep there for a bit. Oh, here we go. Councillor Chenard.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I would agree, but I also disagree because we weren't silenced throughout it. It seemed to struggle over time and everything on there, a lot of what we've been working on for many years. So now we are upping and a lot of it has to be done. So I wouldn't say we were silent on it. We just carried on, and hats off to this. And a lot of the stuff to get it done. Well, I hope too we get it done sometime. There's stuff that's just out of our control that we don't get it done, but I'm fully supportive.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Byer.
Thanks, through the chair to administration. Thank you very much for all your work on this. You have all of the GMs have brought back information throughout the past year that have facts and information that can help us make these budgetary decisions and have a better understanding of why we need to do some of these projects and why they cost so much. And helps us bring us to this spot. So thank you for bringing all the facts so we can make accurate and sound decisions.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? This has been an interesting process. I've been through countless budget processes, and I'll be frank, this tax increase does not sit well with me. But it's necessary at this point in time. I've always had the attitude or the perspective that you should never go over 5%. For many years, we had was standard 5% tax increases. We've worked really hard over the last number of years to have smaller tax increases, understanding the difficult times that our residents are in. But that has finally caught up to us. And we have no choice at this point in time but to realign. There are many things that we have chosen not to do or to put off that we no longer can do. And if you look at what other councils and other communities are doing right across this province, they are all over 4%. Many are in the neighborhood of 6%, some are upwards of 12%. And I think one important note to make here is people are going to say 8.25, you guys are nuts. But 2.6% of that is just for COVID recovery because of the decision to reduce taxes by 5% 2 years ago. And so over the last 2 years, we've had taxes subsidized greatly, but provided that level of service. The inflationary costs are hitting our municipality just like it hits households in different ways. And we have had $1 million worth of costs downloaded onto this municipality. And that number keeps growing. Those are numbers from a year ago. And we cannot absorb the costs because we cannot budget deficit budgets. Unlike the province that has a lot more financial power. And it bothers me to no end that communities and councils across this province get burdened with making very tough decisions for their communities, including decisions of increasing taxes by this amount. And nobody calls out the federal or the provincial government for everything that they do to undermine community efforts. And I don't care what political party you are, that happens whether you're an NDP or UCP or what have you. And the provincial government boasts of huge surpluses and has all kinds of money for things such as a provincial police force. But we struggle on a day-to-day basis to provide quality service to our residents because it continue to cut funding and continue to increase red tape in various areas, including our with utilities and other areas. So I think it's important to put that on the record, but I'm excited to see that a number of things are moving forward. I am hopeful that next year we will be in a much better position as we realign this year with this larger tax increase. And I know this is going to be a difficult pill to swallow for many residents, but at the end of the day, if we want that level of service, if you want that increased snow removal, which we are going to see, if you want those recreational opportunities, there's a cost associated with it. And having had my home internet and cable bill just go up by $60 a month with no notice, I think I get way better value from my municipal tax dollars. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? The motion is carried. And I will get off my high horse now. Can I get a motion that council approve the 2023 capital budget as presented in attachment 1? Councillor Bevan will make that motion and CO Beveridge.
No pressure, Dan.
We were having issues at youth council last night too.
We had a
Because they
YouTube
upped the
video
price
that
of the
just
internet.
would not, they would just lag behind.
Are those council upgrades coming?
Middle of January.
Really?
That's a name.
Yes.
They got creative and, you know, just source some different things and yeah, they work really hard.
All right.
All right, we will now move into. We'll move to the capital budget presentation. So council has also had the opportunity to delve into the details of the capital budget on a few occasions, November 8th and November 15th. November 15th, I hope that during that meeting that we, the GMs came and provided some further detail for what council was requesting at that time. However, noting that that we are also happy at this time to answer any additional questions that you may have on any projects that we're setting forward for 2023. One thing I will recognize that this is an ambitious list of projects for 2023. That's not lost on us. But we feel fairly confident that the projects that we have set forward in the capital budget will be successfully completed in 2023. Of course, barring any external factors. That's my disclaimer there. That's out of our control. Of course, supply chain has affected many things over this year. So with that, the 2023 capital budget has 46 projects slated for 2023, which there's 12 carryover projects from 2022, 2 deferred projects that are awaiting provincial budgetary inclusion, and then there's the final 22 of the new projects for this coming year. The total capital budget is $31.2 million, and it would be funded by $7.5 million in reserves, which is about 24.2%. Cost shared projects is 39,000, and so 0.1%. And then the final bit is the grants for just over 23 million and 75.7%. In your package, it was noted during the November 15th meeting. I recall that there was mention that the highway crossing lights were not included. We have included that as a carry forward, and it's noted on here just so it's at the time of the report. Originally, it was not included. It is included here. In your packet, you know, essentially, if council wanted to go through and had any questions at all with regards to any of these projects, we'd be happy to answer. But that concludes really my presentation on the budget. We have spent a considerable amount of time speaking to this, but I would be happy.
Thank you, CEO Beveridge. Council, any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you to all of our staff and GMs and especially Ms. Bittner for all her work on this. Much appreciated. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the 3-year operational plan as presented in attachment 1? Councilor Taylor will make that motion. CEO Beveridge. You're not going to lose your voice after this meeting, are you?
Probably. Would it be a budget meeting if I didn't? So that's success. So I can leave things. Okay, thank you, council. So the 3- and 5-year plans, I'm happy to present these to you this evening. So the Municipal Government Act requires that municipalities have 3-year financial plans and 5-year capital plans, and that councils are to review them annually. Noting these plans are not budgets and that they can change as priorities change. They assist the organization in being aware of upcoming expenses and financial requirements. So while we are legislatively required to bring these plans back to council once a year, we recognize that through this process that we would like to make some improvements to the way that we create these plans and provide council a little more of a definitive approach to how we create these plans as well. So especially a focus on the capital plan. Our goal is to work towards providing a plan that the organization is able to inform the next budget. So essentially, that is the goal. We believe that in doing so, this will reduce that overall budget pressure when it comes to on an annual basis. There will be small tweaks, there will be obviously things that do arise, but that is something that, you know, there's always going to be items that come up. But we believe that in order to move this forward and that we'd like to do is to study, you know, the studies that we put in place for infrastructure and the facilities will be more informed on preparing these plans. And this council has just approved where we are doing studies that are informing our future budgets. So I would say that the ideal state is to be designing projects in the 1 year and the next year constructing them. That allows us a lot better chance to be provided better pricing when it comes to tenders and our timing of tenders as well. And we might even actually have the opportunity to collaborate with others to be able to, if we have our plans in place in the future. So ideally, we'd be doing the same with our 3-year budget as well. Greater planning efforts to be undertaken is really what we're striving for. So it's one thing that in noting this and bringing this forward, I have to be honest with council, we're just not there yet. We have the drive to get there, and despite our best efforts, we just haven't been quite as successful in building this plan out in the way that we want to. I just wanted to bring that forward just as far as these plans, they're likely to come back. They may look a little bit differently, but we want to spend some more time. That doesn't dissuade council from wanting to approve these plans. We will still bring them back, but throughout our process, we will likely have more conversations with council throughout the year on building these. That's really our ideal state.
Right, thank you, CEO Beveridge. Council, any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Beyer.
Thanks. So to the chair to CEO Beveridge. So on the 3-year budget plan, sorry, I guess it's a plan, operational plan. Is the intention to get any more detail than what it's currently listed, or is this generally as detailed as we would see them? So, and the reason I ask is that when I look at, you know, any one line item, some of them kind of stagger up 1 year and then down the next year and then up and then down. And I don't have a clue what that is. And maybe I don't need to know some of those items, but I was just wondering if there was any more information that would generally be presented on them.
Through the chair to Councillor Beyer. I'm not exactly sure what they will look like as far as how defined. In my view, I think it's healthy to be able to have whether it be our projects and such. When it comes to our operational budget, in the finer details, I mean, we do provide like this is pretty high level plan, and in some cases it's just applying 2-3%, you know, essentially as you read in the RFP. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm not your corporate services PM. Unfortunately, I wish I could answer that better. Do I know exactly what this is going to look like? No, but I do know that the process getting there is going to look a little different.
Okay.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. And can I get a motion that council approve the 5-year capital plan as presented in attachments 2 and 3? Councillor Pistachny will make that motion. CEO Beveridge.
Mr. Mayor.
Same, ditto.
I mean, I don't want to be flippant with it either. You know, there's, you know, our GMs did put forward the work as far as trying to build out this plan the best they could with the information at the time.
Council, any questions? Councillor Beyer.
Thanks. Through the chair to administration, maybe to Mr. Kidlitz, I'm not sure. Under our capital plan projects, in future highway commitments, we have the traffic lights, the second to Canadian Tire. Is this the first that I've heard of them? I didn't realize that was a high impact location. I thought that the A&W one was something that we were looking at, so I don't know.
I'll let Councillor Pisichny answer that.
Very Councillor Meyer. In order to develop property with the traffic impact assessments at the time, the town had to commit to putting lights there when required. That's why it's in the county.
And if you want to supplement.
Yeah,
Jim
sure,
Gibbons?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, so also, Canadian Tire has engaged us on an application development to expand that site as well, so as part of that, they've had to engage AT with another TIA. So we're in the works of that right now. The timing of when that'll be, I don't think it's gonna be this year, it looks like the introduction AT is the TIA is saying that they need it, but they're willing to allow the developer to go ahead and do the analysis after to count for the traffic analysis to determine whether it's actually. And so it's earmarked for 2024, and so that's why it's in here. So that development also sort of pushes ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
Through the mayor to administration, we should follow the rules of the Alberta Transportation when doing our assessments. And you know, November is a good time, certain time of year, better to do those traffic impact assessments.
Noted.
After a certain project is done and constructed on Highway 47. Yes, I do want to point out, I think it's good that Alberta Transportation seems to be more able to work with municipalities in some of these things, because I know it was a challenge when that first development went through that required some intervention from around the way. At the time, so it's good to see. All right, any other questions, Councillor Meyer?
Thanks. One more question through the chair to administration. I noticed everything highlighted in green is a funded project. Is that just funded through our gas tax money, our revenue sharing, or our new MSI legal
LGFF,
okay.
local government fiscal framework.
Right. Rolls off the tongue so easy.
Mr. Rector, Councillor Meyer, to be fair, that the LGFF isn't in place, you could still call it MSI until the end of 2023.
Oh.
Just let me see here. It does. So, noting on, as you mentioned, the items in green are all funded. So knowing to dive in deeper as far as how they're funded, I would have to go back into the information. I can definitely do that for you, not a problem, and bring this back if you so wish, but unfortunately, I am not going to speak to something I'm not aware. It's fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I do have questions on some of these things, but we'll wait until the next budget cycle. See if they actually are things, and then we'll get into that, so. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion that council accept the December 6, 2022 information item as set out in attachment 1 for information? Councilor Moore, would you like to make that motion?
Yep.
Yes, all right, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing that, all those in favor? Motion carried. We have no sundry reports. We will go to council committee reports, and we are going back to November the 16th. And today we will start with Councillor Taylor.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We will move on to Councillor Devon.
No, just sorry,
Oh, God.
really sorry. Okay, so, November 16th, I attended.
We're gonna put a time limit on this.
You might have to. Library board meeting, otherwise it's a library renovation expansion project meeting. Is what it's basically turned into. So. Just a sec, okay. Some of the updates that I can give, there was meetings between our building committee and Mr. Beck and CEO Beveridge in terms of beginning partnerships, which is fantastic. I know that our building committee is also meeting with Mr. Mature as well in terms of proceeding on with the project and the town being heavily involved. So that's great. The board is very excited about how this can transpire. There were requests that we do a roof inspection, so that was done, and that was a request by the town. So we put money aside, we budgeted money to do a roof inspection. As well, we are having the architects come out for a final visit. I know they were trying to line up town officials as well in terms of that. So that is where we're at there. And we're very close. Once those architects come out, we're very close to basically being tender ready. And essentially we're just waiting to hear from the grants and hopes that we get them. And then when we do, we will be ready for tender. So spinning off of that, I attended November 22nd, I attended a library policy committee meeting. It has been a while since we've sort of branched out and done some of this, where we are looking at different policies that we want to update, from honorariums to fees for service to the functions of the board and that sort of thing. It's just almost fine tuning a lot of the things that are not policies and maybe written as bylaws and poorly worded. So we're doing that. Yesterday, December 5th, I attended a Yellowhead Regional Library Board meeting where they elected a new executive and approved budget, approved the budget for the group as well, and also creating an advocacy group to speak on behalf of libraries or YRL in terms of the upcoming provincial election. So yesterday as well, on December 5th, along with Mayor Zahara, I attended the Homelessness, Addictions, Mental Health Task Force, where we had kind of a lengthy but important discussion about the future of that task force, on what we wish to do, whether we want to formalize ourselves, and then look at some of the concrete things we could get done, whether it is a transitional housing or
Supportive transitional housing.
So we're certainly going to, we'll think on this in our next meeting, which will be in January. If there's support within that group and that organization to perhaps formalize a group, whether it is a society or something, so then that group can apply for grants or get grant funding to make progress and make changes. So stay tuned for that. And yesterday as well, I attended a youth council meeting. It's been a few months we've done that, and youth just had great discussion on what project they wish to embark on. And lo and behold, it was the youth that came up with perhaps the idea of doing something with regards to homelessness and to assist in some way. What that will look like, we will find out in the weeks and months to come as they sort of work on that. And that is my report.
No, that's not so bad, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Bevan.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Fire.
Okay, on November 16th, I attended the RCMP Town Hall. December 2nd, the Community Features West Yellowhead, we had a meeting at the Overlander Lodge. It was all day. We had board orientation. We had a strategic plan review as well as our regular board meeting. Some of the maybe main things to bring back is the RRF loans. So those are the loans, the $40,000 that businesses got during the pandemic, and then if they pay it all off, they are forgiven $10,000. So they'll have to pay $30,000 back. So that deadline is December 31st of next year. Community Futures did a bunch of those loans. So however anybody would have received those loans, they are still due back. Community Futures has recognized that in across the whole region, there are some businesses that haven't started paying back those loans, and likely are not in a position to repay back those loans. What will happen at that time is that it will turn over to Community Futures, and they will only have up to 2 years to pay that afterwards. So some of them haven't paid any money, and then after that, it's a CRA debt. So they are anticipating that some businesses just might not make it on that. And another really interesting thing was they're doing trying to promote youth entrepreneurism similar to Lemonade Day. This one's called Yeti Youth Entrepreneurs Training Initiative. It's going to be for geared towards high school students age 15 to 18 years of age. It'll have an intense 8-week summer program for summer 2023. They may be eligible to earn up to 3 high school credits. And the sky is the limit with these ideas. So someone could have a lawn mowing business, or maybe like a poop picking up business for dogs or something, or I don't know, a dog walking business. Like there's so many different things that a youth could do for this. It sounds really exciting. I'm very, very excited for this program. I think there's a lot of opportunities for youth in our community to, you know, who would like to start their own business and have some training with it. So it sounds really fantastic. And then earlier today, December 6th, I had a joint multiplex meeting. We've just made a decision to move forward with the ISIP grant. That's that $20 million grant. And more information will come forward at our next council meeting and likely a press release after that. So.
Thank you, Councilor Meyer. Councilor Pacich.
Yeah, I attended the youth council meeting yesterday for the first time. That was very interesting and quite enjoyed it. And today I had the YCE multi-use facility joint meeting. And then both have spoke to both those meetings, so I haven't added more to it.
Thank you, Councilor Schnarr.
Okay, I had many functions, but they weren't on my task list or on my committee. So the committee was Synergy, and there was lots of detail. I forwarded that to council. I believe you all seen an email. The only thing highlight there is Trans-Canada and TMX, where we've been benefiting. Those projects are wrapping up, so we won't see the extra traffic. Trans-Canada, we had our updates, our year-end, focusing on tourism and our membership drive. We're trying to get them. And then the other report I had was Santa Claus Parade. I'll just highlight the people that won. Very impressed. There was like 25 floats. The other thing impressive is the amount of public that was out watching on a cold night. So most colorful interlock, most original was Parkland Composite High School. Best use was West Haven School. Top commercial Country Boys Oilfield. Top retail was SurePoint Group. Best nonprofit was Edson Snow Seekers, and being part of the judging was very difficult because the floats were, because people spent a lot of time and money on that. The other thing for the chamber this Friday is they're going to be their Christmas party. We're at about 200 ticket sales now. There's still tickets available, so encourage people to go out. And that's it for my report. I did some other mayor things, but that's it.
Mayor.
You did other mayor?
I did some mayor things.
Yes.
And some
There's a grand opening for me, so thank you very much.
Yes.
Councilor Moore.
Thank you. I had the honor of attending the FCSS AA conference at West Edmonton Mall at the Fantasyland Hotel. Interesting initiatives coming from the different FCSS groups around the province. And it was great to network with everyone, of course, and a lot of separate workshops and such. And they were all very valuable for gaining knowledge on the organizations. And one of the last ones was on the last day before we left. It was the Body Break people, Hal and Joanne McLeod. And they gave us a good talk on fitness and mental health, which is always good to have, especially these days.
I remember watching them on TV when I was about 5 years old. So.
Yes, yes. Oh, they still look pretty good. Yeah. And I still think they have a show, although I couldn't tell you which channel it is right now. Maybe. And December 2nd, of course, I attended the West Carolina Community Futures meeting in Hinton at the Overlander Lodge, along with Council Byer and Mayor Zahara, and a lot of other people as well. And that it was good to orient myself with all the happenings that are going on and will be going on in the future.
All right, thank you, Councilor Moore. On November the 16th, we had a West Yohead Regional Waste Management Authority. Unfortunately, quorum could not be reached, but we did have some informal discussion there. The RCMP Town Hall that evening, and then can't report on that. On the 23rd, Alberta municipalities had a webinar on the local government fiscal framework. proposals that they submitted, and this is interesting. I think council will remember that Mr. McIver asked both municipal associations to work together to bring forward a proposal for LGFF. So he didn't have to make the tough decision. They wanted us to collaborate and try to come up with a plan that would work for everyone. That didn't happen. RMA had some different ideas than number of municipalities. So they each entered in their own submission to the minister. Under the RMA proposal, regional or rural municipalities would see a 12% increase in funding. Of course, that would be coming from the urban, so that's where they kind of split their ways. So they have about $340 million that are to be split for non-charter communities, so that's outside of Edmonton and Calgary. The Alberta municipalities submitted two different ideas or two different proposals. But the reality is we're going to see a 30% reduction in funding based on the LGFF, how it is currently laid out next year when that comes into effect next year, right? 2023 or 2024?
MSI ends at the end of 2023, so 2020.
Yes, for 2024. Obviously, I think the big push now is with the government boasting about all this money they have to maintain the funding at the levels that we've seen. The good news about LGFF, it is supposed to ride the waves of the economy. So when things are good, we are supposed to see a benefit with the increase in funding. Obviously, if things downturn, then we would see some reductions in that. I'm not going to get into all the details because it's pretty much a moot point until the government makes a decision on how this will look. They have sent out some information that we will forward on to council. I don't know, CO Beverage, if you had a chance to review that yet or not. But they do have some formula. They have the formulas worked out and how much money that we would be getting as a municipality. So it'll be interesting how this plays out. On November 29th, met with regional mayors on homelessness to talk about the situations in their community similar to ours. Drayton Valley is going to be opening up a addiction treatment and recovery center. So look forward to getting more information about that. Drayton Valley has shelter pods that they built similar to Edson's. They're in trailers. They have 14 pods. We have 5. Their 14 pods are filled up every night as well. And they also have a daytime warming center in their community. Same challenges that we face as a community. And then I attended the Community Futures on Friday, which was great. And then what else do we have here? The Homelessness Task Force yesterday that Councillor Taylor mentioned, youth council meeting last night, and we do have youth councillor Andrew Vanderheg with us this evening. So thanks for joining us. He was very interested in our budget and in particular the outdoor rinks. So he had some really good questions about that. And then today we had the YCE steering committee meeting, which more information will be coming out on that. And that is my report. We have no financial items. Questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting. Do we have anybody online?
Mr. Mayor, we appear to have no one online at the moment.
All right, Councillor Vanderheg, any questions?
I don't think so.
No.
This is just regarding the budget stuff.
Anything on the council agenda today?
Well, I don't know if I asked it last meeting, but I think I did have a question regarding the budget. John can host it up.
Sure. Come on up.
Well, there was something on the budget I saw about replacing some like mowers and such. And you did say that the cemetery mower was in bad shape and that would have to be replaced for sure. But I wasn't sure about the other machines, if they could just be like fixed and maybe like put off to a different date, because it's already a lot that we're planning to do this year.
All right, so I'm going to throw that right over to Mr. Bob Beck, who's our town manager of Community Protective Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Vanderheg. and if I get this wrong, Mr. Latour will correct me. Some of all of our equipment has a lifespan after which you can work it many years, and after which generally first 5 depends on the type of equipment. If it starts breaking down too much, it's time to replace it in full. And you're actually spending more time replacing things, and it's being broken down all the time. Better off starting fresh. And I think some of ours are about 8 years, Guy.
The pieces of equipment we have listed for replacement are in the eight-year range. So they've life cycled out, and it's just when you get it on the capital budget to replace it when it life cycles out. So we're at that point right now. We're doing that. The cemetery mower actually burnt, and we did get it money from insurance to replace it, but removing some equipment around, we won't actually be replacing it. And the funds we got will go back into our, in theory, go back into our capital reserve for additional equipment when time comes to replace it.
Thank you. And I think it's also important to note that municipal mowers, unlike personal mowers, are pretty much used every single day in the summertime. So they're going all the time. So there's a lot of wear and tear that goes on. Any other questions?
Leave it on.
All right, thank you. This is the most people we've had here in months, so we appreciate that. Yeah, a really good question. Thank you, Councillor Henry. We will get a motion to go into the closed meeting session. Councillor Byer will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We're doing it.
All right, can I get a motion, please, Counselor Byram?
Let him get it up.
Get on the screen. As
The
Daniel said,
legislative officer is going to bring up the motion.
Okay, I'd like to move that council consent to an additional 2-year variance of the Edson and District Recycling Society's lease to allow use of a portion of the property for shelter pod purposes.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. And we will move on to item 4, Counselor Pisichny.
Yeah, I'd move that we would increase the CAO salary as per the terms discussed in camera.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns? Don't see it, just making sure you get that all done. All those in favor? Motion carried and motion for adjournment.
motion for adjournment. How come,
Counselor Shadard.
how come there's?
All
three
those
L's
in favor?
the first
Carried.
It's not, oh, there's ILL, I thought it was my I.
It'd be correct.
Yeah, he'll get that.
Okay, let's grab my
He'll spell
truck.
check it first.
I just got my truck too.
Are you
having a beer?
Yes, but I go on my truck tomorrow.
Share with you.
Oh, that?
Yeah.
I'm starting my truck. I think you're right.